Good morning, students. I wanted to start off by reminding you to finish the year strong. Don't give up. We just have a few more days. Keep working hard. Get your assignments done. Use complete sentences. Please continue to do that. And also, I just wanted to remind you, if you have missed assignments in the past before, you didn't do them, you can always go back and get half credit for those. So if it's anything that's 4 days or more late, you can still get half credit for those assignments. And the best way to do that is to go through Google Classroom and make sure you click on the classwork tab and go through each assignment and make sure that you turned it in and did it. Don't just hit the turn in button. Make sure you open it and make sure it's completed and hit the turn in button. So at the end of this 9 weeks on Friday, I'll be going through, and any of that late work I'll be entering in, and hopefully that will help to improve your grade if you haven't been doing some of those assignments. So make sure you check on Google Classroom and make sure you've turned everything in and you've gotten at least partial credit for those assignments that you missed before. Okay, today's talk is going to be a more serious one. So we had a few lighthearted instances where I ask you in the book to think about differences between Genesis Society and ours and to think about the pros and cons of those. And today's chapters are going to be much more serious. So many of you have been asking about release. What is it? What does that mean? Where do they go? Where is elsewhere? And you're going to find out the answers to those questions today. And I'm sorry to say that they are not going to be happy answers to those questions. So I want to point out something that's going to be very helpful for you to understand before you read chapters 19 and 20 today. And it's something that you've actually read already, but you may not have picked up on some of this before. And I know that in your answers for these chapters, I corrected these on some of your papers, but if you're not reading my comments, you might not have seen some of those things. So on page 44, we're going to go back to chapter 6, which you guys had done last week. And on that page, it talked about a ceremony of loss. But notice that Caleb was a little 4-year-old who was lost on the river. And we can assume that he has drowned, that he has died. We can assume that. But notice that they never say that. It's a ceremony of lost. It's like he got lost and we never found him. That's how they phrase it. They do not use the word death. The word death has never been used in the book before. So we've never seen that. The only time that Jonas saw death was in chapter 15 in the memory of war. And Jonas had no idea what death was until he got to chapter 15 and received that memory. So please keep that in mind. They do not know what death is. It's not called a funeral. When they do the ceremony of loss, they basically just murmur Caleb's name over and over and over again until it's quieter and quieter, and they just kind of forget about him. So you might be thinking, well, how, Mrs. Barron? How do they not know about death? How could you possibly say that? They have to know about what death is. Well, here's how. There's a couple ways how. So first reason, you notice that they don't get sad about Caleb, at least not too much. So there's not a lot of sadness or grief. There's no crying. There's no funeral. There's no people upset or grieving or anything like that. And that's because, as we know, they don't feel love. So they don't have a strong attachment to anyone. They don't have a family feeling of love. They don't have the romantic feeling of love to a spouse. They don't have love. Okay, so basically, they're just an acquaintance. Caleb was their child, but it was just somebody they knew. Just like Lily is just someone Jonas knows, his mother and father just someone he knows. He doesn't love them because he doesn't have that capacity. Now, he stopped taking the pill, so he's starting to feel those feelings for them. But no one else in the society has feelings of love. They don't know what that is like. Okay, so that's one way that makes it possible for them to not understand or grieve when someone is gone. Now, how do they not know about death? Well, you can't know about something unless you've been taught about it. And no one in the society has ever been taught what death is. Now, in our society, we normally have pets that sometimes pass away, and maybe that's our first experience with death. But remember, they don't have animals, so they've never experienced anything like that. They've never seen an animal die. They don't go hunting. They don't know what that is like. They never had a pet that passed away. They don't have it. Okay, so they don't know what it is. And you're going to see in today's chapters that there are, or rather is, and there's hints that another character do not know what death is. They go through the motions, they see something that happens, but they don't understand it. They don't know what death is. So just another interesting thing about how could you do something but not understand it. So here's a little example that might help you to understand better. So many of you, when you were little, you might have sang a song, Ring Around the Rosy, Pocket Full of Posy, Ashes, Ashes, We All Fell Down. Maybe you sang that when you were little. Maybe you even like grabbed hands and ran around in a circle and sang that and, laughed, and you all laughed as you fell down, and it was a big fun game. Well, what you may or may not have realized is that actually that song is about the Black Plague. And so if you go line by line in the song, it's actually not a happy or funny song at all. So basically, Ring Around the Rosie, people used to get red rings on their body that would signify the infection was spreading throughout their body. Pocket full of posies. So many people were dying that people were carrying posies or flowers in their pocket or in their handkerchief to put over their nose so they didn't smell the stench of the bodies in the houses or in the streets, because they could not bury the bodies fast enough, the amount of people that were dying from the Black Plague. Ashes, ashes, because they couldn't bury the bodies fast enough, they had to burn many of the bodies or cremate many of the bodies. So ashes, ashes, ashes from the fires of burning those bodies is what that means. And We All Fall Down was not something funny or silly at all. It meant that many people were afraid they were going to die from the Black Plague. So you probably sang that as a child and thought it was funny and hysterical and cute, and you had fun with your friends doing it, but actually is a horrific song is what you're singing. And so maybe that'll help you to understand a little bit that the people in Joseph Society don't understand death because they've never been taught about it, just like you didn't understand the song that you sang because you were never taught about it. So think about it that way. The other thing I would like to talk about today is what we can learn from this book, especially in today's chapters. So the committee of elders are the people in charge of the community. They make all the decisions. Everybody follows their rules. They are their leaders. So I hope that you take from this book that it is really important for you to, one, be educated so you know what is going on. Like we just said before, if you don't know about something, you can't understand something. And two, I hope that you are an informed citizen. And I know that you talk a lot about this in your social studies classes, but it also applies here. It's important to be an informed citizen so you know what choices are being made in your society, both on a federal, state, local level. You need to know what is happening, and you need to know what choices are being made. And if you don't, then this kind of scenario could be a possibility. Okay? Maybe not this extreme, but there might be things that happen. If you don't know what you're voting for, if you don't know what's going on in your world, then these sorts of situations can occur. So I hope that you take those lessons from the book. All right, guys, I'm going to show you now the activity for today. Okay, many of these are either short answer or multiple choice questions, but I just want to talk about a couple. So in this one, I'm going to kind of hide this a little bit first. So I want you to find some evidence to support some idea. And when I say incorporate at least 2 quotes in your answer and explain how each quote supports your answer in your own words, that should be a minimum of 4 sentences. 2 of those quotes, okay, and 2 of those explaining how your quote supports your answer. And you can find those kind of throughout chapter 19. Okay, moving down to the bottom, there's some more short answers, multiple choice, but number 12 I want to talk about. You had something like this before that I gave you. So I've scrambled the order of events of something that's going to occur, and you want to unscramble them by putting the number that they occur outside here. And I got you started. This is the first event, okay, and you'll have to unscramble the rest. So you'll just put numbers in front of what order they occur in. Okay, and then if you have questions, obviously you know the drill. You can ask me on Google Meet or email. And then at the bottom, there are places where you can ask me questions if they are not as urgent. All right, guys, again, finish strong. You can do this. Please let me know if you have any questions. Have a great day.